Young or old, little or big, there aren't many people who would care to sleep in a church. I don't mean at sermon time in warm weather, when more than one person has fallen asleep once or twice, but in the night, and alone. A multitude of people will be violently astonished, I know, by this position. It must be argued that any gusty winter's night would find not one person who will meet me alone in an old churchyard, before an old church door, and empower me to lock them in until morning.
Grow cosy around the fire and listen. High up in the steeple of an old church, far above the light and murmur of the town, and far below the flying clouds that shadow it, is the wild and dreary place at night. And high up in the steeple of an old church dwelt the chimes I shall tell you of.
They were old chimes, trust me. Centuries ago these bells had been baptised by bishops long before the memory of man, and no one knew their names. They had clear, loud, lusty-sounding voices, had these bells, and far and wide they could be heard upon the wind. Far below these chimes stood a man, one Toby Veck, though those close to him called him Trotty Veck, for he was a fast-paced man, and those who saw him thought he trotted like a horse about his business. There he stands all weary day long just outside the church door. He was a ticket porter, carrying goods up and down the town, and there Toby waited for jobs.
The papers are full of observations, as is, and so's the Parliament, full of observations. Now, I like to know the news as well as any man, but it almost goes against the grain these days to read the paper. It frightens me almost. I don't know what us poor people are coming to. Lord send we might be coming to something better in the new year upon us.
Why, Father!
It seems as if we can't go right, do right, or be righted. Now, I hadn't had much schooling when I was young. I can't make out whether we have any business on the face of the earth or not. Sometimes I think, we must have a little, and sometimes I think we must be intruding. I get so puzzled sometimes, I can't even make out if there's any good at all in us, or whether we're born bad. We seem to be dreadful things. We give a deal of trouble, always being complained of, guarded against. One way or another, we make the pages. I can bear up as well as most men. Better than a good few many, because I'm as strong as a lion. But supposingly I ain't got a right to see a new year.
Why, Father!
Why, Meg, I didn't expect to see you today.
I didn't expect to come, Father, but here I am, and not alone. Not alone.
Why, you don't mean to say that you...
Smell it, Father dear. Just smell it. No. Lengthen it out a little. Let me just lift up the corner. Just a little tiny corner, you know. There. Now, what is that?
Why, it's hot.
It's burning hot. It's scalding hot. But what is it? Come, Father. You haven't guessed what it is. And you must guess what it is. I can't think of taking it out until you guess what it is. Don't be in such a hurry. Wait a minute. A little bit more in the corner. Now guess.
Oh, it's very nice. It ain't, I suppose. It ain't ponies.
Oh no, nothing like cloning.
Liver. No, there's a mildness about it that don't answer a liver. Potatoes. No, it ain't faint enough for potatoes. And I know it ain't sausages. I'll tell you what it is. It's chillins.
No, it ain't.
Oh, why? What am I thinking? I shall forget my own name next. It's Tripe.
Tripe it is, the best I ever stewed. Make haste, for there's a hot potato beside and half a pint of fresh drawn beer in a bottle. And where will you dine, Father? On the post or on the steps? Oh dear, dear. What rank we are! 2 places to choose from.
Ah, the steps today, my pet. Steps in dry weather, post in wet. There's a greater conveniency in the steps at all times because of the sitting down, but they're rheumatic in the damp.
Once Meg had laid out his meal, Trotty made no pause in his attack upon the savoury meat before him, but cut and ate and cut and drank and cut and chewed and dodged about from tripe to hot potato, and from hot potato back again to tripe, with an unflagging relish. But happening now to look all around the street in case anybody should be beckoning from any door or window for a porter, his eyes, in coming back again, encountered Meg, sitting opposite to him, with her arms folded, and only busy in watching his progress with a smile of happiness.
Why, forgive me, my pet. Why didn't you tell me what a beast I was?
Father?
Sitting here cramming and stuffing and gorging myself. And before me, never much as breaking your precious fast, nor wanting to.
But I have broken it, Father. All to bits. I have had me dinner with Richard. His dinner time was early, and as he brought his dinner with him when he came to see me, we had it together, Father.
Oh?
And Richard says, Father.
What does Richard say, Meg?
Richard says, Father.
Oh, Richard's a long time saying it.
He says then, Father, another year is nearly gone, and where is the use of waiting on from year to year, when it is so unlikely we shall ever be better off than we are now? He says, we are poor now, Father, and we shall be poor then, but we are young now, and years will make us old before we know it. And how hard, Father, to grow old and die, and think we might have cheered and helped each other. How hard in all our lives to love each other and to grieve apart, to see each other working, changing, growing old and grey. How hard to have a heart so full as mine is now, and live to have it slowly drained out every drop, without the recollection of one happy moment of a life to stay behind and comfort me and make me better. So Richard says, Father, as his work was yesterday made certain for some time to come, and as I love him, and have loved him full 3 years, longer than that if he knew it, will I marry him on New Year's Day, the best and happiest day in the whole year, and one that is almost certain to bring good fortune with it. It's a short notice, Father, isn't it? But I haven't me fortune to be settled, or me wedding dresses to be made, like the great ladies, Father, have I? And he said so much, and he said it in his way, so strong and earnest, and all the time so kind and gentle, that I said I'd come and talk to you, Father. And as I couldn't help wishing, there should be something to make this day a sort of holiday to you, as well as a dear and happy day to me, Father. I made a little treat and brought it to surprise you.
And see how he leaves it to cool on the step.
It was the voice of this same Richard who had come upon them unobserved and stood before the father and daughter. A handsome, well-made, powerful youngster he was, with eyes that sparkled like the red-hot droppings from a furnace fire, black hair that curled about his swarthy temples rarely, and a smile, a smile that bore out Meg's eulogium on his style of conversation. Trotty, all action and enthusiasm, immediately reached up his hand to Richard and was going to address him in a great hurry when the house door opened without any warning and a large figure very nearly put his foot into the tripe.
What's this then? Your dinner? Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Well, don't leave it there. Come on. Bring it here, bring it here.
Famous man for the common people, this was Alderman Cute. Never out of temper with them, easy, affable, knowing gentleman. He took the fork upon which a dab of tripe sat. Trotty was so shocked at seeing this man emerge from the door that it gave him no concern to see the alderman finish the tripe himself. It was a relief to get rid of it anyhow. More shocking was seeing the alderman turn to address his footman upon finishing.
Now, you know, I'm a plain man. Yeah, I'm a plain man. Practical. I work in a plain and practical way, you know. That's my way. You see, there's not the least mystery in how to deal with these sort of people. If you only understand them, mind you. Yeah, you can talk to them in their own manner. Now you, Porter. Don't ever tell me, or anyone else, my friend, that you haven't always had enough to eat and of the best. Because I know better. I've tasted your tripe, and you can't chaff with me. That's the word, isn't it? Chaff. Lord bless you. It's the easiest thing in the world to deal with this sort of people if you only understand them. There's a great deal talked about hard up. That's the phrase, isn't it? It's the phrase, isn't it? Hard up. Yeah. There's a certain amount of cant in vogue about starvation, and I mean to put it down. That's all. Lord bless you, you may put down anything among your sort of people if you only knows the way to go about it. Now, is this your daughter, eh? Where's her mother?
Dead. Her mother got up linen. Call heaven when she was...
Not to get up linen there, I suppose. And you there, lad, you're making love to her, aren't you?
Yes. And we intend to be married on New Year's Day.
What do you mean, married?
Whilst we're considering it, we're in a bit of a hurry, you see, in case it should be first.
Come here, my girl. Now, I'm going to give you a word or two of advice, because it's my place to give advice, you know, because I'm a justice. You know I'm a justice, don't you? Huh? Well, you are going to be married, you say. Now, it's very unbecoming and indelicate in one of your sex. But never mind that. After you're married, you'll quarrel with your husband. You'll come to be a distressed wife. You may think not, but you will, because I tell you so. Now, I give you fair warning, I've made up my mind to put all distressed wives down. So don't be brought before me. You'll have children, of course, boys, and those boys will be brought up bad, of course. They'll run wild in the street with no shoes or no stockings. Mind, my young friend, I'll convict them summarily, every one, for I'm determined to put boys without shoes and stockings down. Now, perhaps your husband will leave you or die and leave you with a young baby. Then you'll be turned out of doors, wander up and down the streets. Now, don't wander near me, my dear, for I've made up my mind to put all wandering mothers down. All young mothers of all sorts and kinds, well, it's my determination to put down. And as for sick persons, well, I'm determined to put them down. You know the church service, of course. So if you attempt desperately and ungratefully and impiously to drown yourself or hang yourself, I'll have no pity for you, because I've made up my mind to put suicide down. Now, if there's one thing on which it can be said I've made up my mind more than anything else, is to put suicide down. So, don't try it on with me. That's the phrase, isn't it? Well, at least we understand each other. And as for you, you dull dog, what are you thinking of being married for? What do you want to be married for, you silly fella? If I was a fine young strapping chap like you, I should be ashamed of being milksop enough to pin myself to a woman's apron strings. Why, I should be an old woman before you're a middle-aged man. And a pretty figure you'll cut then, won't you? With a crowd of squalling children running behind you, wherever you go. Now, go along with you. And repent. Don't make such a fool of yourself as to go and get married on New Year's Day. You'll think better of it and differently of it before the next New Year's Day. Trim young fella like you with all the girls after you. Now there, go along with you.
They went along, not arm in arm or hand in hand or interchanging bright glances, but she in tears, and him gloomy and down-looking. Were these the hearts that had so lately made old Toby's leap up from its faintness? No, the alderman, a blessing on his head, had put them down.
Right, now, as you happen to be here, you shall carry a letter for me. Can you be quick? You're an old man. How old are you?
I'm over 60.
Take this letter, Porter. Take care of that daughter of yours. She's much too handsome. Chances are she'll come to no good. I see it clearly, so observe what I say and take care of her. Here.
Trotty had lived up to his name and made good time to the end of his journey, the mansion of Sir Joseph Bowley, Member of Parliament. The door was opened by a porter. "You're to take it in yourself," said the porter, pointing to a room at the end of a long passage opening from the hall. "Everything goes straight in on this day of the year." Toby wiped his feet, which were quite dry already, with great care, and took the way pointed out to him, observing as he went that it was an awfully grand house, but hushed and covered up, as if the family were in the country. Knocking at the room door, he was told to enter from within, and doing so found himself in a spacious library, where at a table strewn with files and papers were a stately lady in a bonnet, and a not very stately gentleman in black who wrote from her dictation, while another, and an older and a much statelier gentleman, whose hat and cane were on the table, walked up and down with one hand in his breast and looked complacently from time to time at his own picture, a very full length, hanging over the fireplace.
From Alderman Cute, Sir Joseph.
Is this all? Have you nothing else, Porter? You have no bill or demand upon me of any kind from anybody, have you? If you have, present it. There is a checkbook by the side. I allow nothing to be carried into the new year. Every description of the account is settled in this house at the close of the old one, so that if death were to sever the cord of existence, my affairs would be found, I hope, in a state of preparation. Yes.
Oh, my dear Sir Joseph, how shocking!
Oh, my Lady Bowley, at this season of the year, we should think of ourselves. We should look into our accounts. We should feel every return of an eventful period in human transaction involves a deep matter, a deep moment between a man and his banker.
That charity, my love, really monstrous. It's only 2 notes for £5. You are the poor man's friend, you know, Sir Joseph. You think otherwise.
I am the poor man's friend. As such I may be taunted, as such I have been taunted. But I ask no other title. I don't agree with Alderman Cute here, for instance. My friend, the poor man, in my district, is my business. No man or body of men has any right to interfere between my friend and me. That is the ground I take. I assume a paternal character towards my friend. Yes. I often say, my good friend, I will treat you paternally. Your only business, Porter, is with me. Your only business in life is with me. I will think for you. You don't need to think about anything. I know what is good for you. I'm your perpetual parent. Such is the dispensation of an all-wise providence. Now, the design of your creation is not that you should swill and gorge and guzzle and associate your enjoyments brutally with food or drink, but that you should feel the dignity of labor. Yes. Live hard and temperately. Be respectful. Exercise self-restraint. Yes. Pay your rent as regularly as you can on the clock strikes. Be punctual with your dealings. I set you a good example for this. My footman, Mr. Fish, is over here, and he's my confidential secretary with my cash box before him at all times. I pay my debts. You may trust me then to be your ever faithful friend and father.
Nice children, Sir Joseph. Rheumatisms and fevers and crooked legs and asthmas and all kinds of horrors.
My lady, I am the poor man's friend and father. He will receive encouragement at my hands every quarter day. He will be put in communication with Mr. Fish, my secretary. Every New Year's Day, myself and my friends will drink to his health. Once every year, myself and my friends will address him with the deepest feeling. Once in his life, he may even receive in public perhaps a trifle, a generosity from the gentry, yes, and when upheld no more by stimulants and the dignity of labour, he sinks into his comfortable grave. Then, my lady, I am the friend and father of the poor on the same terms to his children.
Oh, you have a thankful family, Sir Joseph.
My lady, ingratitude is known to be the sin of their class. I expect no other return from the poor.
They're born bad. Nothing melts them.
But what a man can do, I do. I do my duty as the poor man's friend and father to educate his mind by inculcating in him on all occasions the one great moral lesson which that class requires, that is, entire dependence upon myself. They have no business whatsoever with themselves. It is the nature of things. My lady, the alderman here, you see, is so obliging as to remind me that he has the distinguished honour of meeting me at the house of our mutual friend Deedles, the banker. And he does me the favour to inquire whether it will be agreeable with me to have Will Fern put down.
Most agreeable. The worst man among them. He has been committing a robbery, I hope?
No, not quite, not quite. Very near. He came up to London, it seems, to look for employment. Trying to better himself, of course, that's his story. And being found at night asleep in a shed, was taken into custody and carried the next morning before the alderman. The alderman observes very properly that if it will be agreeable to me, he will have Will Fern put down. He will be happy to begin putting people down with Will Fern.
Let him be made an example of, by all means. Last winter, when I introduced pinking and eyelet holing among the men and boys in the village as a nice evening employment, and had the lines, "Oh, let us love our occupations, bless the squire and his relations, live upon our daily rations, and always know our proper stations," set to music for them to sing the while. This very Fern spoke. "I humbly ask your pardon, me lady, but was I something different from a great girl?" I expected it, of course. Who can expect anything but insolence and ingratitude from that class of people? Sir Joseph, make an example of him.
Very well. Mr. Fish. Yes, if you'll have the goodness to attend me. My dear sir, I am very much indebted to you for courtesy in the matter of this one William Fern. I, of course, regret to add that I can say nothing favourable. I have uniformly considered myself, as everyone, in the light of his friend and father. But I have been returned, a sad case I grieve to say, with ingratitude and constant opposition to my plans. He is a turbulent, rebellious spirit. Nothing will persuade him when he might. Under these circumstances, it appears to me that when he comes before you again, as you inform me he promised to do tomorrow, his committal to prison for some short term as a vagabond, that would be a service to society. Well, it would be a salutary example to those who, in a country where, for the sake of those who are friends and fathers of the poor, as well, of course, as an example to the poor themselves, that misguided class where such examples are so greatly needed. With my compliments and thanks, blah, blah, blah. Now, stop. You there, Porter. You have heard perhaps certain remarks into which I've been led concerning this solemn period of the year, and our duty imposed upon us. Now, I settle my affairs, and you'll observe that I don't shelter myself behind superior standing in society, but that Mr. Fish, my gentleman over there, has a checkbook at his elbow, and is in fact here to enable me to turn over a perfectly new leaf and enter on the epoch before us with a clean account. Now, my friend, can you lay your hand upon your heart and say that you also have made such preparations for the new year?
I'm afraid, sir, I am a little bit behind the world.
Behindhand with the world?
With the world?
I'm afraid, sir, that there's a matter of 10 or 12 shillings owing to Mrs. Chickenstalker.
To Mrs. Chickenstalker?
Oh, it's a shop, sir, in Emerald Line. A little money on account of rent. Very little, sir. It oughtn't be owing, I know, but we have been hard put to it. Indeed.
How a man, even among this improvident and impractical race, a man grown grey, can look the new year in his face with his affairs in this condition? How can you lie down in his bed at night and get up again in the morning? Oh, there, take this letter. Take it. Take the letter.
I heartily wish it was otherwise, sir. We've been very true indeed.
Take the letter. Take the letter. Go!
Mr. Fish motioned Trotty to the door, so he had nothing for it but to make his bow and leave the house. And in the street, poor Trotty pulled his worn old hat down his head to hide the grief he felt at getting no hold on the new year anywhere. Trotty didn't even lift his hat to look up at the bell tower when he came to the old church on his return. He halted there a moment, from habit, and knew that it was growing dark and that the steeple rose above him, indistinct and faint in the murky air. He knew too that the chimes would ring immediately, and that they sounded to his fancy at such a time like voices in the clouds. But he only made the more haste to deliver the alderman's letter and get out of the way before they began, for he dreaded to hear them tagging, "Friends and fathers, friends and fathers," to the burden they rung out last. Having discharged his commission with all possible speed, Trotty set off homeward. But what with his pace, which was at best an awkward one in the street, and what with his hat, which didn't improve it, he trotted against somebody in less than no time, and was sent staggering out into the road and stumbling into a parent and child.
I beg your pardon, I'm sure. I hope I haven't hurt you.
Your friend, you've not hurt me.
Nor the child, I hope.
No, the child, I thank you kindly.
As he said so, he glanced at a little girl he carried in his arms asleep, and shading her face with the long end of the poor handkerchief he wore about his throat, went slowly on. The tone in which he said, "I thank you kindly," penetrated Trotty's heart.
You can tell me, perhaps, and I'm sure if you can, I'm sure you will, and I'd rather ask you than another, where Alderman Cute lives.
I'm close at hand. I'll show you his house with pleasure.
I've meant to meet him elsewhere tomorrow, but I'm uneasy under suspicion and I want to clear my name, so I can go and earn me bread elsewhere. I hope you'll forgive me by going to his house tonight.
It's impossible. That your name's Fern?
Eh?
Fern? Will Fern?
Eh? That's my name.
Well then, for heaven's sake, don't go to him. Don't you go to him. He'll put you down as sure as ever you were born. Here, come up this alley. I'll tell you what I mean, but don't go to him.
Trotty's new acquaintance looked as if he thought him mad, but he bore him company nevertheless. When they were shrouded from observation, Trotty told him what he knew, and what character he had received, and all about it.
It's true enough in the main, master. I can shift grain with hope from here to there, but let it be as 'tis. You know, what are the odds? I go against this plan, it's me that suffers. I can't help it, and I'll no doubt do the same tomorrow. But as for character, these gentle folks will search and search, and they'll pry and pry before they help you say a dry good word. Let's just hope that they hold on to good opinion quicker than we do. Otherwise their lives really are strict and hardly worth the keeping. No, for me, master, I have never taken nothing with this hand that weren't my own. I've never held it back from work hard or poorly paid, and whoever denies it, they can chop it off. But when my work won't sustain me as a human creature, when my living is so bad that I'm starving outdoors and in, when I look upon a working life that began this way, goes on this way, and will no doubt end this way with little chance or change, and I say to those gentle folks, keep away from me. Let my cottage be. My doors is dark enough without your darkening upon them more. No, you can go and act your theatre plays and play your games, but without me. And you do them and enjoy them. But we are naught to do with each other, and best left alone.
Seeing that the child in his arms had opened her eyes and was looking about her in wonder, he checked himself to say a word or two of foolish prattle in her ear, and stand her on the ground beside him. Then, slowly winding one of her long tresses round and round his rough forefinger like a ring, while she hung about his dusty leg.
I'm not a cross man by nature. No, I'm easy satisfied, I'm sure. I bear no ill will against none of them. But I only want to live like one of the Almighty's creatures, but I can't. I don't. And so a rift is opened between those that can and those that don't. We're not the only ones. No, you can tell them by the hundreds and by the thousands sooner than just by the ones. And I got a bad name that way. And I'm hardly likely, I'm afeared, to get a better. It's against the law to be out of sorts, and I'm out of sorts. Still, the good Lord knows I'd rather have a cheerful spirit if I could. I don't know if this alderman can hurt me by sending me to jail, I don't know, but without a friend to speak for me in the entire world, he might just do it. And you see then, well...
She has a beautiful face.
Oh, yes, well, I think so, yes, most of the time. Many times, yeah, I've thought about it, when the hearth was cold, when the cupboards were bare. Thought about it the night, actually, when they came and got us like two thieves. Still, can't use that little face too often, can you, Lily, eh? It ain't hardly fair upon a man.
Is your wife still living?
I never had one. No, she's me brother's child, no. An orphan. 9-year-old, though you can kick to look at her. No. No, she'd have been well looked after if she'd stayed where we lived, 8 or 20 miles away. Yeah, between four walls. Actually, they did a good job with my old father when he couldn't work no more. Not that he kept him for very long, no, but no, I took her instead and have looked after her ever since. Her mother had a friend here in London and we've come looking for her and we've come looking for work too, but no, it's a big place. Still, plenty of space for us to walk around in, Lily, eh? I don't know so much as your name, and yet, well, I've opened my heart to you freely, for I'm thankful to you, and with good reason I will take your advice and steer clear of this,
Justice.
that's what they call him, is it? Justice. And tomorrow, we'll go and see if we can seek fortune somewhere else outside London. A good night to you, and God bless. Happy New Year.
Oh, stay. The new year can never be happy to me if we part like this. The new year can never be happy to me if I see the child and you go wandering away, you don't know where, without a shelter for your heads. Come on with me. I'm a poor man living in a poor place, but I can give you lodgings for one night. I never miss it. Come on with me. Here, I'll take her. I'll carry 20 times her weight and never know it. Tell me if I go too quick for you. I'm very fast. Always was.
Trotty said this, taking about 6 of his trotting paces to one stride of his fatigued companion, and with his thin legs quivering again beneath the load he bore.
Ah, she's as light as a feather. Here we are and here we go, round this first turn into the right, Uncle Will, and past the pump, and sharp off up the passage to the left, right opposite the public house. Here we are and here we go. Cross over the road, Uncle Will, and mind the kidney pieman on the corner. And here we are and here we go. Down the mews here. Uncle Will, stop at the black door with T-Doc Vet, Ticket Porter, written up upon the board. And here we are and here we go. And here we are indeed, my precious. Meg!
With which words, Trotty, in a breathless state, set the child down before his daughter in the middle of the floor. The little visitor looked once at Meg, and doubting nothing in that face, but trusting everything she saw there, ran into her arms.
Here we are and here we go. Uncle Will, here's a fire, you know. Won't you come to the fire? Over here and here we are and here we go. Here, Meg, me precious darling, where's the kettle? Oh, here it is and here it goes. And it'll boil in no time.
Trotty really had picked up the kettle somewhere or other in the course of his wild career, and now put it on the fire, while Meg, seating the child in a warm corner, knelt down on the ground before her, and pulled off her shoes and dried her wet feet on a cloth. Aye, and she laughed at Trotty too, so pleasantly, so cheerfully, that Trotty could have blessed her where he kneeled, for he had seen that when they entered, she was sitting by the fire in tears.
Why, Father? You're crazy tonight, I think. I don't know what the bells would say to that. Oh, poor little feet. How cold they are. Oh, when they're done, we'll brush out the damp hair. And when that's done, we'll bring some colour to that poor pale face with fresh water. And when that's done, we'll be so gay and brisk and happy.
The child, in a burst of sobbing, clasped her round the neck, caressed her fair cheek with its hand, and said, "Oh, Meg, oh dear Meg." Toby's blessing could have done no more. Who could do more?
Here I am and here I go, me dear.
Oh, goodness gracious me. He's crazy. He's put the child's bonnet on the castle and on the lid behind the door.
Oh, I didn't go for to do it, me love.
Ever desperate to make the good host, Trotty withdrew to buy tea and bacon for the ready money he had made that day carrying the 2 letters.
But here we are at last, all correct. I was pretty sure it was tea and a rasher. So here it is. Meg, me pet, if you'll just make the tea while your unworthy father toasts the bacon, we shall be ready immediate. It's a curious circumstance, curious, but well known to my friends that I never care myself for rashers nor for tea, but I like to see other people enjoy 'em. But to me, as food, they're disagreeable.
Yet Trotty sniffed the savour of the hissing bacon, as if he liked it. And when he poured the boiling water in the teapot, looked lovingly down into the depths of that snug cauldron, and suffered the fragrant steam to curl about his nose and wreath his head and face in a thick cloud. However, for all this, he neither ate nor drank, except at the very beginning, a mere morsel for form's sake, which he appeared to eat with infinite relish, but declared perfectly uninteresting to him. No, Trotty's occupation was to see Will Fern and Lillian eat and drink, and so was Meg's. And they were happy, very happy. Although, thought Trotty sorrowfully, as he watched Meg's face, that match with Richard is broken off, I see.
Will Fern, you come along with me. You're tired to death and broken down for want of rest. You come along with me. Take her with you, Meg. Put her to bed. There. Now, Will, I'll show you where you lie. It's not much of a place, only a loft. But having a loft, I always say, is one of the greatest conveniences of living in a mews. Until this coach house and stable gets a better let, we live here cheap. And there's plenty of sweet hay up there, belonging to a neighbour. And it's as clean as hands. And Meg can make it. Oh, cheer up. Don't give way. New heart for a new year. Always.
It was some short time before Trotty, the foolish little old fellow, could compose himself and draw his chair to the warm hearth. But when he had done so and had trimmed the light, he took his newspaper from his pocket and began to read. Carelessly at first and skimming up and down the columns, but with an earnest and sad attention very soon. In this mood he came to an account, and it was not the first he had ever read, of a woman who had laid her desperate hands not only on her own life, but on that of her young child. A crime so terrible and so revolting to his soul, dilated with the love of Meg, that he let the journal drop and fell back in his chair, appalled.
Unnatural and cruel. None but people who are bad at heart, born bad, who had no business on the earth could do such deeds. Oh, it's too true, all I've heard today. Just too true, too full of proof. We're bad.
The chimes took up the words so suddenly, burst out so loud and clear and sonorous that the bells seemed to strike him in his chair. And what was that they said? Toby Veck, waiting for you, Toby. Toby Veck, waiting for you, Toby. Come and see us, drag him to us, haunt him and hunt him, break his slumbers, Toby Veck, door open wide, Toby Veck, door open wide, Toby. Then fiercely back to their impetus strain again, and ringing in the very bricks and plaster on the walls.
It was impossible to bear it. Their energy was dreadful. If the tower door is really open, thought Trotty, well, what's to hinder me from going up into the steeple and satisfying myself? He was pretty certain as he slipped out quietly into the street that he should find it shut and locked, for he knew the door well and had so rarely seen it open. But what was his astonishment when, coming bareheaded to the church, he found that the door, which opened outwards, actually stood ajar. He thought on the first surprise of going back or of getting a light or a companion, but his courage aided him immediately, and he determined to ascend alone. What had Trotty to fear? It's a church. Besides, the ringers may be there and have forgotten to shut the door. So he went in, feeling his way as he went, like a blind man, for it was very dark and very quiet, for the chimes were silent.
The dust from the street had blown into the recess, and lying there, heaped up, made it so soft and velvet-like to the foot, that there was something startling even in that. The narrow stair was so close to the door, too, that he stumbled at the very first, and shutting the door upon himself by striking it with his foot, and causing it to rebound back heavily, he couldn't open it again. This was another reason, however, for going on. Trotty groped his way and went on, up, 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 and round, and up, 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 higher, higher, higher up.
At length, the dull and stifling atmosphere began to freshen, presently to feel quite windy. Presently it blew so strong that he could hardly keep his legs. But he got to an arched window in the tower, breast high and holding tight, looked down upon the housetops, on the smoking chimneys, on the blare and blotch of lights, towards the place where Meg was wondering where he was and calling to him perhaps, all kneaded up together in a leaven of mist and darkness.
Up, 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 and climb and clamber, up, 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 higher, higher, higher up, until ascending through the floor and pausing with his head just raised above its beams, he came among the bells, shadowy and dark and dumb. A heavy sense of dread and loneliness fell instantly upon him as he climbed into this airy nest of stone and metal. His head went round and round. He listened and then raised a wild, "Hello! Hello!" It was mournfully protracted by the echoes. Giddy, confused, and out of breath and frightened, Toby looked about him vacantly and sunk down in a swoon.
Black are the brooding clouds and troubled the deep waters, when the sea of thoughts, first heaving from a calm, gives up its dead. Monsters uncouth and wild arise in premature, imperfect resurrection. When and how, and by what wonderful degrees each separates from each, no man can tell. Trotty saw the tower swarming with dwarf phantoms, spirits, elfin creatures of the bells. He saw them leaping, flying, dropping, pouring from the bells without a pause.
Bewildered by the host of shifting and extraordinary figures, as well as by the uproar of the bells, which all this while were ringing, Trotty clung to a wooden pillar for support and turned his white face here and there in mute and stunned astonishment. As he gazed, the chimes stopped. Instantaneous change. The whole swarm collapsed. Their speed deserted them. They sought to fly, but in the act of falling died and melted into the air. No fresh supply succeeded them. One straggler leapt down pretty briskly from the surface of the great bell and alighted on his feet, but he was dead and gone before he could turn round, and then the tower was silent.
Furious and awful figures, resting on nothing, poised in the night air of the tower, with their draped and hooded heads merged in the dim roof, motionless and shadowy. Shadowy and dark, although he saw them by some light belonging to themselves. None else was there, each with its muffled hand upon its goblin mouth. He could not plunge down wildly through the opening in the floor, for all power of motion had deserted him. Otherwise he would have done so, he would have thrown himself head foremost from the steeple top, rather than have seen them watching him with eyes that would have waked and watched although the pupils had been taken out.
What visitor is this?
I thought my name was called by the chimes. I hardly know why I'm here, or how I came. I listened to the chimes these many years. They have cheered me often.
And hath you thanked them?
Oh, 1,000 times.
How?
I'm a poor man. I can only thank 'em in words.
And always so? Have you never done us wrong in words?
No.
Never done us foul and false and wicked wrong in words?
I never did so to my knowledge, sir. It was quite by accident, if I did.
Those who blame times or the bells for their failures past, those who cry and blame only serve themselves in the present time. Who does this does a wrong, and you have done that wrong to us, the Chimes.
If you knew, or perhaps you do know, if you know how often you have kept me company, how often you have cheered me up when I've been low, how you were quite the plaything of my little daughter Meg, almost the only one she ever had, when first her mother died, and she and me were left alone. You won't bear malice for an hasty word.
Who hears in us, the Chimes, any note of disregard or anger, hope, joy, pain or sorrow about the piteous poor, does us wrong. That wrong you have done us.
I have. Oh, forgive me.
Do you hear us echo the dull vermin of the earth, the putters down of broken and crushed natures that were formed so as to climb higher than such maggots for a time can crawl, can conceive? Those who do us wrong have done us wrong, and you have done that wrong.
Not meaning it. In my ignorance, not meaning it.
Lastly, and most of all, who turns his back upon the fallen and disfigured of his kind, abandons them as vile, and does not trace and track with pitying eyes the unfenced precipice by which they fell from good, grasping in their fall some tufts and shreds of that lost soil, and clinging to them still, when bruised and dying in the gulf below, does wrong to heaven and man, to time and to eternity, and you have done that wrong.
Oh, spare me. For mercy's sake.
Listen,
Listen.
listen.
She's dead. Meg is dead. Oh, her spirit calls. I can hear it.
The spirit of your child bewails the dead and mingles with the dead. Dead hopes, dead fancies, dead imaginings of youth. But she is living. Learn from her life a living truth. Learn from the creature dearest to your heart how bad the bad are born. See every bud and leaf plucked one by one from off the fairest stem, and know how bare and wretched it may be. Follow her to desperation.
The spirit of the Chimes is your companion. Go. It stands behind you.
Trotty turned and saw the child Fern had carried in the street, the child whom Meg had watched, and now asleep.
I carried her myself tonight in these arms.
Show him what he calls himself.
The tower opened at its feet. Trotty looked down and beheld his own form, lying at the bottom on the outside, crushed and motionless.
No more a living man? Dead?
Dead.
Gracious heaven. And the new year?
Past.
What? I missed me way and coming on the outside of this tower fell down in the dark? Fell down? A year ago?
9 years ago. As they gave the answer, the bells recalled their outstretched hands, and where their figures had been, there the bells were. And they rung their time being come again. And once again, vast multitudes of phantoms sprung into existence. Once again, were incoherently engaged as they had been before. Once again, faded on the stopping of the chimes and dwindled into nothing.
In a poor, mean room, working at the same kind of embroidery which he had often seen before her, Meg, his own dear daughter, was presented to his view. She was now grown and her features worn with age. He made no effort to imprint his kisses on her face. He did not strive to clasp her to his loving heart. He knew that such endearments were for him no more.
Meg, how often you raise your head from your work to look at me?
My looks so altered that they frighten you.
Nay, dear, but you smile at that yourself. Why not smile when you look at me, Meg?
I do so. Do I not?
Now you do, but not usually. When you think I'm busy and don't see you, you look so anxious and so doubtful that I hardly like to raise my eyes. There is little cause for smiling in this hard and toilsome life, but you were once so cheerful.
Am I not now? Do I make our weary life more weary to you, Lillian?
You have been the only thing that made it life. Sometimes the only thing that made me care to live so. Such work. So many hours, so many days, so many long, long nights of hopeless, cheerless, never-ending work. Not to heap up riches, not to live grandly or gaily, not to live upon enough, however coarse, but to earn bare bread, to scrape together just enough to toil upon and want upon, and keep alive in us the consciousness of our half faith. Oh, Meg, how can the cruel world go round and bear to look upon such lives?
Trotty turned to look upon his guide, but the spirit of the child had taken flight, was gone. Neither did he himself remain in the same place, for Sir Joseph Bowley, friend and father of the poor, held a great festivity at Bowley Hall in honour of the natal day of Lady Bowley. Bowley Hall was full of visitors. The red-faced gentleman was there, Mr. Filer was there, the great Alderman Cute was there. Alderman Cute had a sympathetic feeling with great people, and had considerably improved his acquaintance with Sir Joseph Bowley on the strength of his attentive letter. Indeed, had become quite a friend of the family since then, and many guests were there. Trotty's ghost was there, wandering about, poor phantom, drearily, and looking for its guide.
There was to be a great dinner in the great hall, at which Sir Joseph Bowley, in his celebrated character of friend and father of the poor, was to make his great speech. The hall was all joy and light for those that enjoyed revels within its walls. Trotty roamed through the company to and fro, looking for his guide, or for Richard.
Where is Richard? He should help and comfort her. I can't see Richard.
There had been some speeches made, and Lady Bowley's health had been proposed. Sir Joseph Bowley had returned thanks and made his great speech, showing by various pieces of evidence that he was the born friend and father of the poor. He'd given a toast to his friends, to his children, and to the dignity of labour. Then a slight disturbance at the bottom of the hall attracted Toby's notice. After some confusion, noise, and opposition, one man broke through the rest and stood forward by himself. Not Richard, no, but one whom he had thought of and looked for many, many times. A man so old and grey and bent, but with a blaze of lamps upon his gnarled and knotted head. Trotty knew Will Fern as soon as he stepped forth. What is this? Who gave this man admittance? This man is a criminal from prison. Mr. Fish, will you have the goodness to escort us?
A minute. Give me a minute leave to speak.
Gentle folks, you've drunk the labourer. Look upon me. I just come from jail. For neither the first time, nor the second, nor the third, nor yet the fourth. Gentle folks, look at me. I'm at my worst. Beyond all harm or hurt or hate. Beyond all help. The days when your kind words and kind actions would have done me good, he's gone. Lost on the air, like last year's beans or the scent of clover. Give me a word to speak for these. That if these two come together, hear the truth, spoken out, for once.
There's not a man here who would have you for a spokesman.
Like enough, Sir Joseph, I believe it. It's not easy, gentle folks, to be brought up decent, commonly decent in a place such as this. That I grew up a man and not a brute says something for me, as I was then. But as I am now, there's nothing can be said or done for me. I'm past it. I dragged on. Oh, neither me nor any other man knows how. It was so heavy. I couldn't even put a cheerful face upon it, or make believe that I was anything more than what I was. And you gentlemen who sits in sessions, when you see a man with discontentment writ upon his face, you say, "He's suspicious. I have my doubts," says you, "about Will Fern. Watch that fellow." I don't say gentleman, you see, because it don't seem quite natural. But from that hour, whatever Will Fern does at least once goes against him. Gentle folks, look how your laws are made to hurt and harm us, when we've come to a place such as this. I tried to live elsewhere, but I'm a vagabond, to jail with him. I goes a-nutting in your woods and I break a limber branch or two, to jail with him. One of your men spots me in my own patch of garden with a gun, to jail with him. I have a quite natural angry word with him when I'm free, to jail with him. I snap a twig, to jail with him. I eat a rotten carrot, to jail with him. I eat a rotten turnip, to jail with him. It's 20 mile away. And on the road home I beg a trifle on the side of the road, to jail with him. And so the constable or the keeper, anyone, spots me doing anything, anywhere, to jail with him, because he's a vagrant and a jailbird known, and jail's the only home.
A very good home too.
Do you think I say this to serve my cause? Who's going to give me back my liberty? Who's going to give me back my good name? Who's going to give me back the innocent face of my niece? not all the lords and ladies in wide England. Gentlemen, when you're dealing with men like me, you need to start at the right end. Give us with mercy. Good homes when we're still lying in the cradle. Give us good food when we're working for us lives. Give us kinder laws to bring us back when we go wrong. And don't give us jail, 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 thrust upon us wherever we turn. There's not an indignation that the labourer won't take with gratefulness, for he has a patient, peaceful and willing heart, and he deserves his rightful spirit, whether he's a rack and ruin such as me, or whether he's like one of you in this room now. But there is a divide between you from this point. Bring it back. Bring it back, gentlefolks. Bring it back before the Bible starts to read something different within that labourer's altered mind, so that it reads something like I've known in jail. Where thou goest, I will not go. Where thou lodgest, I will not lodge. Though people are not my people, and thy God is not my God.
A sudden stir and agitation took place in the hall. Trotty thought at first that several had risen to eject the man, and hence this change in its appearance. But another moment showed him that the room and all the company had vanished from his sight, and that his daughter was once again before him, seated at her work, but in poorer, meaner garret than before, and with no Lillian by her side.
Still at work, Meg? You work late?
I generally do.
And early?
And early.
So she said you were never tired, or that you never owned of being tired. Not even when you fainted between work and fasting. Still, I've told you that before, last time I came.
You did. And I implored you to tell me nothing more. And you made me a solemn promise, Richard, that you never would.
Oh, a solemn promise. A solemn promise. To be sure, a solemn promise. How can I help it, Margaret? What can I do? She's been to me again.
Again? Does she think of me so often? Has she been again? 20
times again, Margaret. She haunts me. She follows me in the street. I can feel her foot upon the ashes when I'm at my work. Which isn't that often. And before I can turn my head, I can hear a voice in my ear: Richard, don't turn round. For heaven's love, give her this. She brings it where I live. She sends it in letters. She taps on the window, leaves it on the sill. What am I to do? Look at it.
Hide it, and when she comes again, tell her that I love her in my soul. That I never lie down to sleep, but I bless her and pray for her. That in my solitary work, she never ceases to be in my thoughts. That she is with me night and day. That if I died tomorrow, I would remember her in my last breath. That I cannot look upon it.
I have told her so, I have told her so, as plain as words could speak. I have taken the gift back and left it at her door 12 times since then. But when she finally comes and stands in front of me face to face, what else can I do?
You saw her. You saw her. Oh, Lillian. Oh, my sweet girl. Oh, Lillian.
Oh, yes. Yes, I saw her. There she stood, trembling. Does she look any older, Richard? Does she speak of me often? Is she thinner? My old place at the table. What's in my old place? The old frame with which she used to show me how to do our old work. Has she burnt it, Richard? I saw her. And I heard her say it.
I've fallen very low, Richard. You may guess how much I have suffered in having this sent back when I can bear to bring it with my own hand. But you loved her once. Others stepped in between you, fears and doubts, and jealousies and vanities estranged you from her. But you did love her, even in my memory.
I suppose I did. I did. That's neither here nor there.
Richard, if you ever did, if you have any memory for what is gone and lost, then take it to her once more. Once more. Tell her how I laid my head upon your shoulder where her own head might have lain, and I was so humble to you, Richard. Tell her how you looked into my face and saw the beauty which she used to praise, all gone, and in its place a poor, wan, hollow cheek that she would weep to see. Tell her everything. She will not refuse again. She will not have the heart.
You won't take her money, Margaret. Good night, Margaret.
Good night.
Some new remembrance of the ghostly figures in the bells, some faint impression of the ringing of the chimes, some giddy consciousness of having seen the swarm of phantoms reproduced and reproduced until the recollection of them lost itself in the confusion of their numbers. Some hurried knowledge, how conveyed to him he knew not, that more years had passed, and Trotty, with the spirit of the child attending him, stood looking on at mortal company.
Fat company, rosy-cheeked company, comfortable company. There were 2, but they were red enough for 10. This cosy couple, married evidently, had made a fair division of the fire between them and sat looking at the glowing sparks that dropped into the grate, now nodding off into a doze, now waking up again when some hot fragment, larger than the rest, came rattling down as if the fire were coming with it.
Trotty had little interest in a change like this, after the changes he had seen, but association is very strong sometimes, and he looked involuntarily behind the parlour door, where the accounts of credit customers were usually kept in chalk. There was no record of his name. Some names were there, but they were strange to him, and infinitely fewer than of old, from which he argued that the porter was an advocate of ready money transactions, and, on coming into the business, had looked pretty sharp after the chicken stalker defaulters. So desolate was Trotty, and so mournful for the youth and promise of his blighted child, that it was a sorrow to him, even to have no place in Mrs. Chickenstalker's ledger.
Hard weather indeed.
Aye. These are Christians, aren't they? Yeah. Some die easy, some die hard. This one hasn't got long enough. considering he's making a fight for it, I like him all the better. He's a customer, my love. Oh, it's a nasty business. This is upstairs, Mrs. T. I mean, the men can't live.
The man in the back attic, Mr. Tugby, is going.
Well, he'd better go, hadn't he, you know, if he's gone.
Well, I don't think you can move him. I wouldn't take the responsibility of saying it could be done myself. You better leave him where he is. He can't last long.
We have never had a word, you and I, apart from on this matter. Now look what we come to. I mean, he's gonna die here after all. He's gonna die on the premises. He's gonna die in our house.
And where should he have died, Tugby?
The workhouse, of course. What the workhouse is made for.
Not for that. Not for that. Nor did I marry you for that. Don't think it, Tugby. I won't have it. I won't allow it. When my widow's name stood above that door, as it did for many years, and this house was known as Chicken Stalkers far and wide, and never known but for its honest credit and good report, when my widow's name stood above that door, Tugby, I knew him as a handsome, steady, manly, independent youth, and I knew her as the sweetest looking, sweetest tempered girl eyes ever saw. I knew her father. Poor creature. He fell from the steeple, sleepwalking, killed himself. He was the simplest, childish-hearted, hardest working man that ever drew the breath of life. So when I see him out of house and home, may the angels see me out of heaven. And they should, and serve me right.
Oh, there's something interesting about the woman even now, but how did he come to marry her?
Oh, well, that isn't the least cruel part of her story, sir. See, they kept company, she and Richard, when they were a young and beautiful couple, and everything was settled. They were to be married on New Year's Day. But then Richard got it into his head somehow, through what the gentleman told him, that he could do better, and that he'd soon grow to repent it, and that, well, that a gentleman of his spirit had no business getting married. Well, she became frightened of the gentleman, and melancholy and timid of him deserting her. And well, she was worried about having to bring her children to the gallows, and of its being wicked to be a man and wife, and a good deal more of it. So they lingered and lingered, but the trust was broken, you see. And so in the end was the match. But the fault was his. She would have married him, sir, joyfully. I've seen her heart swell many a time afterwards, when he's passed her in a proud and careless way. Never did a woman grieve as much as she did for Richard when he first went wrong.
Long did he?
Well, sir, I don't think he rightly knew himself, you see. And I think his mind was troubled by them having broken and, well, being embarrassed in front of the gentleman. And perhaps he was worried too about how she might take it. He'd have suffered any trial to have Meg's promise and Meg's hand again. Well, that's what I believe. He never said it. More's the pity. Instead, he took to drinking and idling, bad companion. Oh, all the fine resources that were to provide a better life for him than the home he might have had. He lost his good looks, his character, his health, his strength, his friends, his work, everything.
Well, he didn't lose everything, did he, Mrs. Tugby? No, because he gained a wife, didn't he? And I want to know how he gained her.
Well, I'm coming to it, sir, in a moment. So, he went on and on like this, sinking lower and lower, and her enduring, poor creature. Oh, miseries enough that would wear her life away. And so, in the end, he was so cast down and cast out, for no one would employ him. or even notice him, and all doors were shut upon him, go where he would, applying from place to place, door to door, until coming for the 100th time to one gentleman who often and often tried to, because he was a good workman to the very end. Oh, this gentleman, he knew his history, you see, so he said to him, I believe you are incorrigible. There's only one person on this earth who has the chance of reclaiming you. Don't ask me to trust you again until she's prepared to do it. Or something like that.
Ah. Well?
Oh, he went to her, kneeled to her, said it was so, said it had always been so, and made a prayer to her for it to save her.
Oh. And she?
She came to me that night, asked about living here. She said, what he once was to me is buried in a grave, side by side with what I once was to him. But I've thought about it and, well, I'm going to make the trial. For the love of the light-hearted girl. You remember her? Who was to be married on New Year's Day. And the love of her Richard. And she said that he came to her from Lillian's, and that Lillian had trusted him, and that she couldn't forget that. And so they were married. When they came back home here and I saw them, I hope that such prophecies that had parted them when they were young may not often come true as they had in this case, or I wouldn't be the maker of them for a mine of gold.
And I suppose he used their will, as soon as they were married.
I don't think he ever did that, sir. He went on better for a short time, but his habits were too strong and too old to be got rid of. He soon fell back a little, and then he was falling back fast when the illness took hold of him. He's always cared for her, I think. In fact, I'm sure of it. I've seen him crying out for her in his crying fits and his tremblings, trying to kiss her hand and saying it's her 19th birthday. And so he's lay there for these weeks and months now, and, well, what with him and her baby, she hasn't been able to do her work. And what with not being able to be regular, she's lost it even if she could have done it. How they've lived, I'll never know.
There was a cry from upstairs. Mr. and Mrs. Tugby ran upstairs after it. Trotty followed, with the child beside him, floating up the staircase like mere air. Follow it. Follow her. Follow her. He heard the ghostly voices of the bells repeat their words as he ascended the stairs. Learn it from the creature dearest to your heart. It was over. It was over, and this was she, her father's pride and joy. Haggard and wretched woman, weeping by a bed, if it could be called that. She pressed the child into her breast, hanging her head down upon this infant. Who can tell how spare, how sickly and how poor an infant? Who can tell how dear?
He hovered round her, sat down at her feet, looked up into her face for one trace of her old self, listened for one note of her old pleasant voice. He flitted round the child, so wan, so prematurely old, so dreadful in its gravity, so plaintive in its feeble, mournful, miserable wail. He almost worshipped it. He clung to it as her only safeguard, as the last unbroken link that bound her to endurance. He set his father's hope and trust on the frail baby, watched her every look upon it as she held it in her arms, and cried 1,000 times, "She loves it! God be thanked, she loves it!"
For the last time, Margaret, my race is nearly run, but I couldn't finish it without one last word with you, without one grateful word.
What have you done?
So long ago, Margaret, but that night is as fresh in my memory as ever 'twas. We little thought we'd ever see each other like this again. Your child, Margaret. Let me have her a moment. Let me hold your child, Margaret. Is it a girl?
Yes.
See how weak I've become, Margaret. Having the courage to want to look at her. Let her be a moment. I won't hurt her. It's a long time ago, I know, Margaret, but what's her name?
Margaret.
I'm glad of that. I'm glad of that. Margaret, it's Lillian's.
Lillian's?
I held the same face in my arms when Lillian's mother died and left her.
When Lillian's mother died and left her?
How shrill you speak. Why do you fix your eyes upon me so? Margaret. Margaret, for the last time, thank you. Good night. Goodbye. Put your hand in mine and promise me that you'll forget me from this hour. Or think that my ending was here.
What have you done?
There'll be a fire tonight. There'll be fires lit this winter time to bring light to the dark nights, east, west, north, south. And when you see those vivid skies red, they'll be blazing. When you see those skies red, forget me. Don't think of me again. Or if you don't, remember the hell that lit up inside of me. And try to think that you can see my flames reflected in the clouds. Good night. And goodbye.
Meg called after him as he left, but he was gone. She sat down stupefied until her infant roused her to a sense of hunger, cold and darkness. She paced the room with it the livelong night, hushing it and soothing it. She said at intervals, like Lillian when her mother died and left her. Why was her step so quick, her eyes so wild, a love so fierce and terrible whenever she repeated those words?
But it is love. It is love. She'll never cease to love the child. Oh, my poor Meg.
Meg dressed the child next morning with an unusual care and once more tried to find some means of life.
She loves it. Chimes. She loves it still.
Follow her. Learn it from the one you hold so dear.
She mingled with an abject crowd, who tarried in the snow until it pleased some officer appointed to dispense the public charity, the lawful charity, not that once preached upon a mount, to call them in and question them and say to this one, "Go to such a place," to that one, "Come next week." Here too, she failed. She loved her child and wished to have it lying on her breast, and that was quite enough.
I was her father. I was her father. Oh, have mercy on her. And on me. Where did she go? Turn her back. Meg! My child! Great father! Turn her back!
To desperation, Learn it from the creature dearest to your heart.
In her own scanty shawl, Meg wrapped the baby warm. With her feathered hands she smoothed its limbs, composed its face, arranged its mean attire. In her wasted arms she folded it, as though she never would resign it more, and with her dry lips kissed it in a final pang and last long agony of love.
Putting its tiny hand up to her neck and holding it there within her dress, next to her distracted heart, she set its sleeping face against her, closely, steadily against her, and sped onward to the river, to the rolling river, swift and dim, where winter night sat brooding like the last dark thoughts of many who had sought a refuge there before her, where scattered lights upon the banks gleamed sullen, red and dull, as torches that were burning there to show the way to death.
To the river, to that portal of eternity, her desperate footsteps tended with the swiftness of its rapid waters running to the sea. He tried to touch her as she passed him, going down to its dark level. Trotty followed her. She paused a moment on the brink before the dreadful plunge.
No! Save her! Save her! I have learnt it! From the creature dearest to my heart, I have learnt it. Oh, mercy, have mercy on me in this hour. If in my love for her, so young and so good, I slandered nature in the breasts of mothers rendered desperate. Pity my presumption, wickedness and ignorance, and save her. Have mercy on her. This dreadful crime has sprung from love perverted. Heaven meant her to be good. There is no loving mother on earth who might not come to this, if such a life had gone before. Oh, have mercy on my child, who even at this pass means mercy to her own, and dies herself, and perils her immortal soul to save it.
Trotty might have said more, but the bells, the old familiar bells, his own dear, constant, steady friends, the chimes, began to ring the joy peals for a new year, so lustily, so merrily, so happily, so gaily that he leapt upon his feet and broke the spell that bound him.
And whatever you do, Father, don't eat tripe again without asking some doctor whether it's likely to agree with you. For how you've been carrying on, God gracious!
Meg was working with her needle at the little table by the fire, dressing her simple gown with ribbons for her wedding. So quietly happy, so blooming and youthful, so full of beautiful promise, that he uttered a great cry as if it were an angel in the house, and then flew to clasp her in his arms. But he caught his feet in the newspaper which had fallen on the hearth, and somebody came rushing in between them.
The first kiss of the new year of Meg is mine. Mine. Okay? I've waited outside the house this hour to hear the chimes ring it in. Meg, my precious prize. A happy year. A lifetime of happy years, my darling wife.
You never in your life saw anything like Trotty after this. I don't care where you've lived or what you've seen. You never in your life saw anything at all approaching him. He sat down in his chair and beat his knees and cried. He sat down in his chair and beat his knees and laughed. He sat down in his chair and beat his knees and laughed and cried together. He got out of his chair and hugged Meg. He got out of his chair and hugged Richard. He got out of his chair and hugged them both at once. He kept running up to Meg and squeezing her fresh face between his hands and kissing it, going from it backwards so not to lose sight of it, and running around like a figure in a magic lantern. And whatever he did, he was constantly sitting himself down in his chair and never stopping in it for one single moment. Being, that's the truth, beside himself with joy.
Your wedding day, my pet. Your real happy wedding day.
Today. The chimes are ringing it in. Hear them.
But today, my pet, you and Richard, had some words today.
Because he's such a bad fellow, Father. Ain't he, Richard? Such a headstrong, violent man. He'd have made no more speaking his mind to that great alderman and putting him down I don't know where than he would of...
Kissing Meg.
No, not a bit more. But I wouldn't let him bother. Where would have been the use?
Richard, me boy, you were turned up trumps originally, and trumps you must be until the day you die. You were crying by the fire tonight, me pet, when I came home. Why did you cry by the fire?
I was thinking of the years we've passed together, Father. Only that. And thinking that you might miss me and be lonely.
Right, there she is. There's little Lillian. Here we are and here we go. Oh, here we are and here we go again. And Uncle Will too. Oh, Uncle Will, the vision that I've had tonight through lodging you. Oh, Uncle Will, the obligations you've laid me under by you coming, my good friend.
Before Will Fern could make the least reply, a band of music burst into the room, attended by a lot of neighbours screaming, "A Happy New Year, Meg! A happy wedding!" Many of them.
Trotty Veck, my boy, it's got about that your daughter is going to be married tomorrow. For ain't a soul that knows you that don't wish you well, or that knows her and don't wish her well, or that knows you both but don't wish you both all the happiness the new year can bring. And here we are to play it in and dance it in accordingly. Married? And not tell me, Meg? Oh, never. I couldn't rest on the last night of the old year without coming to wish you joy. I couldn't have done it, Meg. Not if I'd been bedridden. So here I am. And as it's New Year's Eve and the eve of your wedding too, my dear, I had a little flip made and brought it with me.
Mrs. Tugby. Oh, I should say Mrs. Chickenstalker. Bless your heart and soul. Happy New Year. And many of them, Mrs. Chickenstalker. This here is William and little Lillian.
Lillian? Not Lillian Fern, whose mother died in Dorsetshire?
Yes.
The friend you was hoping to find?
And like to prove us most a gooder friend, if that can be, than the one I found last night.
Oh, Will, you have the goodness.
To the music of the band and the bells, the marrowbones and cleavers, all at once, Trotty, making Meg and Richard's second couple, led off Mrs. Chickenstalker down the dance, and danced it in a step unknown before or since, founded on his own peculiar trot.
Had Trotty dreamed? Or are his dreams and sorrows and the actors in them but a dream, himself waking but now?
If it be so, O listener, dear to him in all his visions, try to bear in mind the stern realities from which these shadows come. And in your sphere, none is too wide and none too limited for such an end. Endeavour to correct, improve, and soften them.
So may the new year be a happy one to you, happy to many more whose happiness depends on you.
So may each year be happier than the last, and not the meanest of our brethren, sisterhood of fellows, be debarred their rightful share.